Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum adnastana. Beautiful day out here. Out here enjoying a cigar. Just finished a cup of coffee. Today's segment of Points of Light Radio, what we are going to be discussing is the core message of your lodge. What is the core message of your organization? Right. And I think that ties in quite well with, what lodge is the best fit for me. Right. What is that core message? Sometimes some of us like that to know what that is. If you've recalled from previous segments of Points of Light Radio, we've talked about the core message of, for instance, Freemasonry, right, free gardeners, and so on. So I want to get into that. I'm bringing multiple guests on here. We're going to discuss this, and we're going to see if they maybe have a common message to them. So let's move forward. I'm going to keep doing, of course, what I'm doing here. And we'll talk about this when we're finished here. Okay, our first guests are going to be, hey, want to put those flutes away for a while? Just put them down for a while, okay? Okay. Our first guests that you're going to see on here is a team from the Apprentice Boys of Derry. We're going to interview Les Graydon and John Knox. You'll see the rest of this interview later, but today they're going to talk about that core message of the Apprentice Boys of Derry. Good flutes, though. Yeah, and now, what would you gentlemen say that the core message of Apprentice Boys is?
It's about preserving culture and heritage, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, that's wonderful. And okay, go ahead, Brother Knox.
One of the things I like to say personally is that although it's about, obviously the siege of Londonderry, the shutting of the gates, the relief and everything, it's not just about that. And the way that I've always seen the Apprentice Boys is it uses that particular period in history and the symbolism around that to represent something bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the defence of Londonderry, but as brother just said there, it's about the defence of our faith, our way of life, our culture, our heritage, and it's about the spirit. It's about giving people that same spirit that the defenders of Londonderry had. Not towards a literal besieging army, but towards the other things that would seek to destroy our way of life or destroy our faith or destroy our heritage. And it's important. The important thing is our commemorations, they don't just honour the heroes of the siege and related actions, but it's about making sure that we ourselves pick up that same spirit and actually live it today.
Wow. Next, I want to talk to David Gusteau. He's in a number of fraternal orders, but in this particular segment, he's here refreshing our memories about the core message of the Loyal Order of Moose. So, what do you feel the core message of the Order of Moose is?
It's called the family fraternity. I would say the core message is to go to your lodge, socialize with the people that are at the lodge, support your lodge in the way that you can, which hopefully is supporting their community, but the end goal really to the Moose is supporting Moose Heart and Moose Haven.
Marshall Long is back, and he's here to tell us what the core message is for the White Shrine. Now, what do you think the core message, shall we say, of the White Shrine is?
Well, I would say the core message is we do seek to portray the sacred story of the birth of Jesus. We look at our emblem and we think of the star is the one that led the wise men to the Khan. The crook reminds us of the great shepherd and how he tends his flock. And then, like we talked about a minute ago, the cross teaches us that through his suffering and death that we may expect eternal life or hope for eternal life.
Mike Diaminiak is back here, and he's the military advisor of the Patriarchs Militant, Pennsylvania, USA. And he's here to tell us about the core message of the Patriarchs Militant. Now, what do you think the core message of the Patriarchs Militant is?
Our core message is universal justice. The idea that all of the ideals and principles that you learn throughout your journey in Odd Fellowship are to be applied to all people regardless of their background or their beliefs or where they're from, and that you should be basically applying the chivalrous example of defending what's right wherever it is that you see injustice.
Now, the final guest you'd see on here is Paul Martin Harper. Now, you're going to be seeing more of him in a future segment of Points of Light Radio, but you did see Paul Martin Harper here last year, around January or February of last year. I featured him, and he's a member of the Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes in Cyprus, the James Mercury Lodge to be exact. And he was here last year talking about the Buffed Up podcast. I recently caught up to him again, and I'm going to bring you a part of that interview where he talks about what he feels the core values of the Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes is. Let's have a look at that. So what do you feel the core message, though, is of the RAOB? What do you think their core message?
Fraternity, it's the fraternalism and benevolence. We do an awful lot of charity work. Our main charity out here in Cyprus is the Holiday of a Lifetime.
So, brothers and sisters, what did we learn from all of this? Right? Les Graydon and John Knox from the Apprentice Boys of Derry. That was a fun interview. You'll be seeing the rest of it later. But they felt that the role and the core, shall we say, message of the Apprentice Boys of Derry was to preserve the history, way of life, and culture, okay, in their area. Now, there's still need. It's unfortunate, but yes, there is still a need in this day and age for organizations that will do that. And you'll be seeing more of those as we go along, and you've already seen some here on Points of Light Radio, right? I know that the Free Colliers and so on had some of that messaging there, right? Brother Cousteau from the Loyal Order of Moose said that the core message of the Loyal Order of Moose was charity, right? A big part of that charitable effort was Moose Heart. It's a wonderful organization that the Moose operates that does such wonderful work in people's lives, life-changing work in the lives of so many kids and so on down through the years. I just love some of the things I've learned about that every day, right? Marshall Long, here again. Marshall Long, he's the Supreme Watchman of the Shepherds of the White Shrine. He said the core message of the White Shrine was to preserve preserve the story of Jesus' birth and all the symbols that went with it, as well as how that event, let's be honest, changed the world. There's no way about it. It did. Okay? And there again, in this day and age, yeah, we still do need organizations that do that, right? In this very secular world we live in, yes, there is a need to preserve religious history, right? Mike Dominiak, military advisor for the Patriarchs Militant, Pennsylvania, talked about the core message of the Patriarchs Militant was universal justice and respect for all people, regardless of their background. And here again, unfortunately, in this day and age, and more than ever in this day and age, shall we say, there is a need for an organization that does that, right? Right? But these were wonderful messages, okay, that we heard today, the core messages that we heard today. And as I said, so many people are looking at the message that an organization, not just to join an organization or an order, they want to hear what that message is. And, you know, these are some very positive messages you've heard here today, right? Right. But let me ask you, for those, you know, if you're not in an order, what are you looking for? What kind of message are you looking for when you go to join? Just don't join any order. You know, look this over. See what their message is. I would encourage you to do that if you're not in an order. And if you're looking, and if you are in an order, what is the message of your lodge or your order, right? Or your organization, your club, and so on. And what, you know, how does it express it, not just to the membership, but the, you know, the broader public, shall we say? What is that? I want to hear about that in the detail section of this segment, right? Now, before I go, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome your comments and input. I welcome you as well to support Points of Light Radio by hitting on the PayPal link you see in the detail section of this segment. You can hit on that, make a voluntary donation to Points of Light Radio. We will use that to move the podcast forward. Points of Light Radio is not a sponsor-driven podcast. You can see the link to my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. My X handle is at PO Light Radio. My Bluesky handle is at polightradio.bsky.social. You can see the link to my Spotify channel as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, it's been a pleasure bringing you not just this podcast, but these messages today, right? Carrying them to you. And until we meet again, just step into the light.